Hey guys, in this video, I'm about to teach you how to leverage LinkedIn on how to make you increase your job interviews that you can have. But first I want to let you know, look at here, it'll be the table of contents so you can kind of look and see where you want to go to. If you don't want to go through the background and understand how I came to this process, you can just jump to here at this time, just go straight there, and then now you can go straight to what the process is. But the process is so unique that you may not trust it without understanding the background that goes towards it. So if you want to go to the end of the page first and then have to read the beginning, do what you need to do, whatever's best for you, but this process works. I've used it on multiple people, multiple different professions, people moving from one profession to another profession, and this process works as long as you stay consistent. But let's do the intro and then let's get right into it. Welcome guys, this is Joshua Ward with Z Changed Me, and I'm excited to talk about this. I'm just excited to be able to help you talk about how to increase your job interviews by leveraging LinkedIn. Now, this channel is composed of single dad, personal growth, attachment theory, and also relationships. But today's gonna be more about the personal growth, which I feel like finding a job will land more into the personal growth perspective. But let's jump right into this, all right? So what did I do? So when I was looking as a pharmacist, I was a director of pharmacy at a hospital, and I was trying to find a way to get into higher leadership roles in the CEO, like a CEO, C-suite, in that C-suite area. And I was having a difficult time punching into that. It took me a whole year to really get some traction with it, but I've learned a lot of things along the way. But I found a way to leverage LinkedIn to be able to help me increase my likelihood of getting jobs. And I use LinkedIn every day, and I talk to people and I did certain things, and then eventually over time I got a job through it. But then what happened was 3 years later I needed another job, and then I used the same process. Instead of it taking me a year, it took me 2 months during COVID to get 5 interviews in 2 months. All right, I don't know about you, but I think that was kind of crazy. But this process not just helped me, it's helped other pharmacists, it's helped engineers, it's actually helped anybody, people who worked at like retail stores and higher up in management, so many different people, and I want to be able to help other people increase this also. Now, let's look at the things to consider to back up what I'm about to tell you what I did. The first thing you have to understand is recruiters. Now, recruiters can be your best friend or they can be a waste of time. Now, if you have the cookie cutter background that fits into that job perfectly and everything works out well, then the recruiter's gonna look at you, they're gonna understand what's going on and give it to the hiring manager. You have to understand what's going on. The HR person or the recruiter is going to sift through the resumes, find out what's exactly on the job description that fits, and then is going to pull that towards the hiring manager. But now with artificial intelligence, they're doing that information on its own, sifting it through. All right. So when you think about that, if you don't fit exactly what they're looking for, they're going to look over you. All right. And so by talking to them or trying to reach out to them, it's going to be a waste of time unless you have exactly what they need to, or if you've been in the field for a while to be able to help out from that. So understand where you are to leverage recruiters. The next thing you have to understand is the times of year where people get hired. Now, I didn't really understand this, but somebody told me this and it made a lot of sense. The best time to actually look for a job or to get hired for a job is late August to November, because what happens is people are back from school and a summer vacation, and so they're more ready to hire people. Everybody's going to be in town for the most part to be able to get the interviews done. But when November hits, Thanksgiving and Christmas, everything shuts down. People taking vacations, people may or may not be slowing down their job. And then what happens is when January comes, it actually starts back up, but they didn't do anything for the past 2 months, so then they got to catch up for 3 weeks and now get back into the mode of hiring. So the end of January to May, but then when May hits, now you got vacations and people are not here to do interviews, so it can slow down the process to get a job. So the best times throughout the year to get a job is at the end of October, end of August to early November, and end of January to about mid-May. So those are your crunch times. also got to take into consideration is most times people get promoted is at the end of the year or beginning of the year, because you got to understand this fiscal year and then budgets there. So when people get promoted or people get increased raises, that's got to be adjusted for most people's fiscal year and how they actually look at budgeting. So the biggest chunk is going to be from January to May to really find a job, because when people get promoted, and then now there's job openings for you in that realm. Now, lastly, when I was looking into getting a job, I applied somewhere and I was just trying to figure out what's going on. This is when I was doing my year research. And I realized that the job I was applying for, I was talking to the HR person and they told me that 1,000 people applied. 1,000 people applied. Like 1000. Hope I'm doing it right. No, I made it this way. 10000. Like, again, 1,000. Sorry, I'm usually good at numbers, not right now. So I was like, man, I don't know anybody. My parents aren't connected. Like, I don't have any connection with this. So I was like, man, I need to start changing my process around. Plus, you have to understand that when you look at a job that's posted, a lot of those jobs already have somebody lined up for that position. So I didn't realize this. I thought that if a job is posted internally in a company, that they have to do 3 to 5 days of it externally before they can hire somebody. But I'm wrong. It's not a federal government law, but what happens is most policies are in there to do something similar to that, because they don't want any discrimination laws on them or any type of discrimination allegations against them. So that's why a lot of them like put it out there. But a lot of times they put it out there just for show, but they know who they're gonna hire. So the mentality you have to think is, okay, how can I get my name in front of somebody before a job is posted? Which is seems kind of crazy, but I found a way to have LinkedIn be able to help that. So let's get this party started, the LinkedIn process. So on my network page, the connections is one thing you need to kind of be aware of, but we'll talk about that later when we start adding people. But let's go to my boy Sam. So Sam is a good guy. We're going to use him as an example, making sure that, let's say we don't know him at all. And we look at his profile and we just added him. And we look, okay, he's executive team leader. Is exactly what I'm looking for in that type of realm. And he's a leader too. That's awesome. Let's go to our preset message. Now with this preset message, you want to make sure that you have a short introduction and then a short message that kind of tells you why you like their profile and if they have time to chat. Now with this message, you want to make sure there's 2 areas that you only have to change, because you want to make this quick. You want to do this in 30 minutes, send a bunch of messages out, because it's a numbers game to get enough people to respond back. But you want to change the name and the position. That's what I have. So the shorter number of things you have to change, the less errors, the less you're going to send something wrong out to other people. So we type in, okay, he's executive team leader. Okay, cool. And then I'll put the change in name. And so once we do this, and you can have your name on the bottom too, and your name should already be preset. I will come back to Sam every single time, copy this message, and then paste it on new messages for new profiles when new people get added with me. So after that, you want to start adding more people. So I usually like to go to the people viewed and just be like, okay, let me just add as many people from there. I go to search engine, look what I'm looking for, and try to search like a different company and start adding people and just go down a list. But you also want to make sure you understand the first, second, and third connection. So you have the first connection, which is going to be people who you're connected with. You have the second connection, which is people who are connected to somebody you're connected with. And then you have the third connection, which you're not connected to anybody else at all. You have a limited number of times where you can do with third connections, so try to stay with second connection as much as you can, but in the beginning it may be kind of hard. But let's go back to my network, and then go to connections. And then what's going to happen is the next day, you would have... Then the next day you have people that you've just added from the next day. And so what you do is you open up profiles. This is what I would do. Open up different profiles. And then I would go to each one of those profiles, take God's Will's message that I just finished, and then I would go in and just put it in each one of the profiles and keep doing that over and over again. And then I would also document what the company that person came from and all this other stuff, which I'll show in a little bit later in the video. But then this is pretty much the process to make sure, and you just continue to do it. It's really easy. It doesn't seem tedious, but it really works. So you send out all these messages and you get one that comes back and says, hey, let's set up a time for a phone call. Hooray! Don't get too excited. You need to make sure in that LinkedIn you find out who's calling who. You want to make sure it's documented so there's no problems down the road. All right, this phone call has two sections, the intro and the outro. Now the intro, you want to make sure you understand who's starting the conversation, who's going to be the person controlling the situation. Now, if you get a phone call, the person you're talking to, and they're like, all right, what's your name? My name is this, the case can be, okay, what do you tell me about yourself? Which is, they're going to ask you a little bit about yourself. And then it's easy. It kind of flows from there because they're controlling the situation. Now, if you have a laissez-faire person on the phone, you want to kind of control the situation and be like, hey, I love your profile. Would love to know a little bit about your background, but do you want to kind of hear mine first and then I can hear yours? We can kind of go from there. And every time I did that, it worked in situations. Now you get to talk about a little bit about yourself, which is huge, all right? Because that can set the tempo about who you are. And if you want to know more about it, I have another video called The Expert Tips on How to Interview, and it's the #1 question people ask in interviews. And what you can do is it'll teach you how to kind of formulate that answer for you. But by that conversation, they'll do the same thing and go from there. That's the beginning. The extra is the questions that you're going to ask to understand. Because sometimes after they talk about themselves, they'll be like, all right, so you have any questions? So be smart and see if you can ask questions based off of their background and what they said. But if you're still kind of new and that's kind of difficult, have some questions down. And some questions you can ask are, if a company like yours, what kind of skill sets that you've seen from mine or know what I know, in my experiences, what will be a good fit for me? And do you like your job? Or how did you get into the job you're in now? Like, so how'd you transition from this to that? And so getting a few questions, it kind of starts to snowball and then conversation starts to pick up. In any situation, building connections is all about asking the right questions that builds connections and gets the other person to talk. That's in general, that's the case. All right, so those are the two parts of the phone call, and then you say thank you and then go from there. Things you do not do, you do not ask for a job. Do not do it, do not do it. Now, they can bring up the job and say, hey, I got this job, it's available. Let them do that. The key to this phone call is not about a job, it's about building a relationship and connection. Now, you build a relationship, you're good, and you hear what they say. Oh, you say, you know what, you can refer me, you can use me as a reference, then document that on an Excel spreadsheet, or where you can, so if you ever have a job in that company, you can do those things. Or you can go back and call that person. But this phone call is not about a job. Now, let's say 2 months down the road happens and a job comes available and you want to know more about it, then you can ask, hey, can you tell me a little bit about this job? Without being in a situation like, hey, can you give me get a foot in? You can see how your connection is and where their footing is and how comfortable they will be. And they still might give you some information at the same time. All right? So that's going to be the process, concluding with the LinkedIn process and also how the phone call should run process. Now, what are the benefits to this process? #1, which is probably the most important, to get to know who you are. The best way to be picked out of a hat is to be in the hat before there's even a hat to begin with. How can you get your name in front of the hiring manager before the job even becomes available? And if they get to know you through communication of a phone call, they already know kind of who you are. Your demeanor, are you articulate? Can you handle yourself? Are you confident? Are you ambitious? And so what happens is now these guys have a good understanding of what they're getting, which is the #1 fear in hiring is, who is this person? And so if you have some known of that person, it reduces the fear of hiring them. So that's #1. #2, you start to understand the lingo. By talking to all these different people in the same field, you start to know words like high agility and coming from a diverse platform, ingenuity. Actually, I don't know if that's a word, but just different terminology, which when you get to the interview, which is #3, it preps for the interview, you actually start learning how to communicate in the interview. And when you have all these conversations, you actually feel more calm because they kind of ask the same questions on these phone calls as they do in interviews. So you kind of get ready for prep and what kind of questions they're going to ask. So you sound more crisp when you get to the interview. And lastly, it helps you narrow down your job search. Because you can look, oh man, there's so many different fields in procurement or logistics. But when you start talking to people, they can be like, you know what, you have great skill sets in such and such. Now you can start to realize what your skill sets could be transferable, which can help you get the job, but also you start to understand what you have in you that could be beneficial for you finding a job down the road. So those are the 4 benefits. Here are some other considerations. Number one, the speed depends on how pressing the need is. If you have a job, you don't need to go at a grueling pace. Just do little by little. Do 2, 3 messages a week or whatever you feel comfortable with. Now, if you're at like you don't have a job, you might need to go Oregon Trail grueling pace and just go at it ham every day, all day, as much as you feel comfortable with. That's number one. Number two is LinkedIn record and document. All right, document everything. If you look, I'm gonna put it here. If you look here, you can see like I did this and I documented the name and what company they were with, and it helped organize because in Excel you can be able to filter and look at all the ones from one company and see if you can find connections. So if you find somebody else that you're trying to connect to on LinkedIn, you can utilize a name that you already have connected with, and et cetera, et cetera. And the last thing is you want to make sure anybody you contact with in this process, even if you get a job or not, every year around the holiday time, send a message to them and tell them about what's going on in your life, tell them what's going on in your family's life, just to give them a prize of what's going on and appreciative of them taking the time out, because you never know how that relationship and fostering that relationship could give you a job down the road or help you down the road when something else happens. You want to make sure you continue that. And generally, you should just do that in general. Anybody professionally, just stay in contact with them. Those are the other considerations. Now, let's get to the final thoughts. So just to recap, relationships, relationships, relationships. I'd rather spend my time on relationships than trying to put all these applications, because it takes a lot of time to put those applications in, okay? Understand if recruiters are beneficial for you or not. What time of year that you actually are looking at applying. You also need to look at understanding how many people are going to apply for that job. If you've got a specialized job, then you may not have to worry about it. And then final thought I want to make sure you understand is I remember watching the Pursuit of Happiness, and this guy, he's a single dad like me, and didn't have time to try to go up the list from bottom to top, so he's like, forget that, I'm going to the top down. And the thing is with LinkedIn, the higher people you get connected with, the more leverage they have to potentially give you an opportunity. So start off little with people that were maybe at the same level as you, and then eventually start going to directors, CEO. I even had connections with some CEOs and C-suite people, and so it was really beneficial. So hopefully this made sense, and I'm gonna try to show you some things from the computer. I'm gonna try to figure that out. I'm still new to YouTube, but thank you for your time. Please put in the comments if there's any other questions or anything that I missed, or if you want more clarity, or if you want other video content that has to do with something like this, please let me know. Hopefully this was beneficial. Thank you for your time, and I'm excited to see you at my next video. So, and as I end this one of these channels, if you have any kids, please love them and give them a hug, because they need it. Until next time.